You are now listening to the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. My name is Darryl Kinsey Jr., and I'm welcoming you to take another lap of the extra mile for today, March 11th, 2021. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a day that I think a lot of us will never forget, as a year ago today, COVID-19, of course, was declared a pandemic. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on the show. Teran Rodriguez just jumped into the chat. He's going to join me on the program here in a little bit to talk about it as well. Larry B will also be on here at 8:15 as we memorialize the day that sports stood still. And this is usually the time where I would welcome in my co-hosts, Michael Ward and Christopher Lehman. Unfortunately, Michael Ward is out this evening, and Christopher Lehman continues to be on adorable baby duty. So it's just going to be myself here this evening talking to you guys. This is basically the first time I think I've been without someone as a co-host since the early part of the series. First few episodes, it's just me by myself talking to a microphone for about an hour, and it was a lot of fun there. I'll have some people come in about 15 minutes, of course, but we're going to go throw it back a little bit classic ways here on the Extra Miles. We're going to go ahead and kill the music and get into the program. It's been a weird week, I will say, as in all of our memories, whether it be on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, we've seen the reminders of what we were doing 1 year ago when the pandemic came upon us. The last couple of days, you're looking at, the last time you went to a public event, the last time you're really without a mask around other people or at work. For some people, the last time they were in their office for a year, and it feels like such a surreal time. It feels like it was 30 years ago, but it was only 365 days, and it's something that's going to take a little bit of getting used to. As Davidson Crooks jumps into the chat. Hey, Davidson, hope you're doing well this evening. And we're going to talk about it. And, of course, going to talk about racing as well. We'll start, of course, with what happened last week at Las Vegas. Another great race in the Cup Series of the 550 package. I know there's some people in NASCAR, particularly the two Steves, that are feeling vindicated right now, as we saw a lot of 3 and 4 wide racing during the restarts, which have always been entertaining with this package. But we even saw passing during the long green flag runs as tires mattered, even though the cars were, for the most part, still full throttle. Tire wear mattered. And we saw Brad Keselowski, for example, who was full throttle, got past the lead at some point. We saw him and Chase Elliott have an almighty scrap for the lead during the race. At one point, the top 6 during a restart were 3x3. It was incredible. And we do have some good mile-and-a-half racetracks. I know the intermediate tracks have taken a beating from NASCAR fans recently, but we do have decent tracks. Homestead Miami Speedway with its progressive banking and worn-out surface. Las Vegas also with the progressive banking and a wearing surface out there in the desert. Atlanta has a wearing surface. Actually, I should call that a worn surface, actually. And then Darlington, it's Darlington. It's one of the hardest tracks on the schedule for a reason. They'll be racing hover cars. We will still be at Darlington, and it will still be tough for the drivers to handle, of course. But we do have good mile-and-a-half racetracks. When they get worn out, they have the multiple grooves. They produce great racing. Unfortunately, we don't have enough of them because for every Darlington, there's, Kansas, for one thing. Texas, another one. Charlotte, unfortunately, ever since the repave there way back when. Actually, it wasn't a repave. It was a diamond grind, actually. That track has not fared well as far as racing. As far as the fans are concerned, they really haven't liked the racing that they've seen at Charlotte. It's starting to come back, though. There's a lot that has to be worked on with the tracks, of course, and the cars as well, I think. I will not say that the cars do not need work. We'll see what happens with the next-gen car next year, but the intermediates are not as bad as people will put them out there to be. And especially with Homestead in Las Vegas, we've seen 2 races on the Jeff Cluck pole fare extremely well. I think Las Vegas had like an 88% on there. And the one thing that I will say is there's like 11% that didn't like the race. And I'm sitting there and thinking, okay, what are you looking for? All right, there's that group that just doesn't like the stages. Not much you can do with that. There's the people that are just diametrically opposed to the 550 horsepower package. Okay, can't really do anything with that. They're just going to be dug in on that hill. What is everybody else looking for? What are you looking for in the race? Somebody mentioned that the leader got away at the end and it was a long green flag run. That's how racing works usually. The best car is going to continue to be the best car, no matter what package you throw on these race cars. So I don't understand when there is a long green flag run, the guy that was dominant all day wins a race, and then people complain that there was no race for the lead at the end and the leader ran away by 6 seconds. That's what the leader's supposed to do. So I know we want to see, like at the restrictor plate races where there's like 80 to 100 passes for the lead every race and everybody's crashing and fighting each other at the end of the race, but every race isn't going to be like that. Sometimes the best guy is just going to zoom out there and there's nothing you can do about it. It's unfortunate. It's really not unfortunate, actually. That's racing. Sometimes the best guy just wins. And there's no package on earth that we can put on a race car and make it so that the leader still can't get away. Because it's still going to be the best guy, and it's still going to be the best car. You're going to have to work on your car all day to try and catch him. And if you can't, well, the guy's going home with the check and the trophy. But it's not a lot that we can do about it. Although we will move on to the next race, and we will see what people have to say, of course, in Phoenix. Kyle Larson, by the way, won the race, the Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas, and this was a win that we could see coming for a while. Didn't expect it to come as quick as it did, of course, but Kyle Larson, outside of a couple of races, or really one race this season, has been electric. He's ran up front for most of the events, had a chance to win the Daytona Road Course, slid into the tire barriers, coming back out onto the oval portion of the track late in the race while running for the win. Kyle Larson's a good race car driver. Cliff Daniels is a good crew chief. You put them together, and they have done great things so far. The question is always going to be, with Kyle Larson, should he have come back directly with Hendrick Motorsports? And folks, Kyle Larson is too talented to be in a position where he was going to have to go back and race at a Spire or a Front Row or Rick Ware Racing. I said this on Tuesday, on 2i Tuesday, that he has basically been compared as the next Jeff Gordon. Even with his faults, that talent didn't go away. So the top teams were going to be hungry to try and pick him up. Stewart-Haas Racing was in the bidding to try and pick up Kyle Larson. Tony Stewart wanted Kyle Larson to take the seat for Clint Bowyer, and Ford would not pull the trigger. Chevy would, and that is why he replaced Jimmy Johnson at Hendrick Motorsports. Now, he didn't replace Jimmy Johnson's car, or Jimmy Johnson in his car, as, of course, William Byron moved to the 48, but Jimmy Johnson leaving opened up a spot for Kyle Larson to move into. Rick Hendrick now has, in Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson, potentially next generation Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, right there in his team. Chase Elliott has already won a championship. He's already shown he can win. Kyle Larson has shown that when he has a good car under him, he can also win, and win often. 4 races into this partnership with Cliff Daniels, he picked up a win. Kyle Larson is a driver you need to watch all season. And I will eat crow. I came on at the beginning of the year. I said he wasn't going to win this season. 4 races in, he's already won. So I will eat that humble pie. But Larson is now in the playoffs, and he wants to remove from everyone's memory the stain of what happened last year in April. And the only thing that's going to do that is if he starts winning. And if he can start winning often, if he can get into the playoffs, people are going to start forgetting what he did. Whether or not that's right or wrong, it doesn't really matter. Winning cures a lot of ills in this sport. And there are still going to be some people, however, that aren't going to let him forget what happened when he said an absolutely terrible phrase during an iRacing event in April during the COVID red flag. Those people you're not going to get back. And that's okay. That is their decision, to be honest. But for the people that can be swayed, winning is going to solve a lot of that for Kyle Larson. He's already picked up one. We'll see what he'll be able to do when we go to Phoenix and the rest of the season, of course. And on the other side, Stewart-Haas Racing was an absolute non-factor on Sunday at Las Vegas. Kevin Harvick qualified on the pole. It went backwards. At one point, he was nearly getting put a lap down, finished 20th. I'm not going to say that Stewart-Haas Racing is in trouble. Of course, this racetrack at at Las Vegas hasn't been the best racetrack for them, and that's fine. But we will see going forward how they can improve. And if they can improve, this could be looked at as a blip. If they continue to struggle the regular season, it's not going to be much of a blip. There is a chance for a playoff hangover for Kevin Harvick. Remember, he lost out on a chance in the Final Four in heartbreaking fashion, and that hurts. Whether you are a rookie or a veteran or whatever, it hurts when you are dominant all season and you end up not winning the championship, or in Harvick's case, not even having a chance to fight for it. And that could cause a situation where you have that little bit of a hangover. It's still in the back of your mind and you can't get over it. And you go into the beginning of the next season and you struggle a little bit. Now, Harvick at the beginning of this season definitely has not struggled. I will say that. He had a top 10 streak going into Las Vegas and unfortunately fell apart with that 20th place run. But now we go back to Phoenix this week, a racetrack where he didn't run well at anyway last year. So he wouldn't have won the championship no matter what. But he will have an opportunity to get a preview of the championship track and exercise some of those demons from the last race that we had there last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how Stewart-Haas Racing rebounds from. Sorry about that. But I don't want to say to the Stewart-Haas fans out there, don't panic yet. See what happens going forward. But we're getting close to 8:15. That means it's time for our first break. And before we go, folks, 2020 was a rough year on all of us as we take a look back. 1 year, and our finances also took a real beating. If you need help with financial planning to make sure 2021 is a great rebound, make sure you hit up my friends at Legacy Financial. They will hook you up and they will help make sure that your 2021 financial plans are running at full efficiency so you can bounce back from what was just an awful 2020. So make sure you give our folks Legacy Financial. Find them on Twitter at Legacy Financial. Tell them Darryl sent you. Thank you so much to Legacy Financial for sponsoring IE Sports Radio. Well, we will be right back. And when we do, we'll get into the meat and potatoes of this show as we memorialize the day that sports stood still. We'll be right back.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, sports fans? You're looking for a different type of sports talk show, something you haven't heard before. You got to check out the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday on 2 Live Stews Radio, 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Sports talk at its finest. Always have great guests, playing some good hip-hop. You don't want to miss it. Make sure to tune in to the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we are back here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio. And as I said at the top of the show, this is a day that none of us will ever forget. 1 year ago, in the sports world, we were all settling in to get ready to watch a night of great NBA action when a report came out that Jazz forward Rudy Gobert, who had 1 day prior touched a bunch of microphones after a press conference in a show that the COVID-19 pandemic was overblown, had contracted COVID-19, and the NBA season was being put on pause. Well, Gobert's actions were talked of the times where people did not take the COVID-19 pandemic at the time seriously. And while it may have been meant as a joke or a way to lighten the mood, so you say, it had profound consequences and became a flashpoint that started a cascading segment of closures. The NBA and NHL closed down in quick succession. The next day, many March Madness basketball tournaments, including the Big East tournament that was in progress in Madison Square Garden, was also shut down. The XFL, that had just come back and was halfway through its inaugural season, was forced to shut down and later fold completely after several Seattle Dragons players came down with the disease. And as states shut down, so did sports leagues. And by the time Friday rolled around, it looked like the only sports that would be in action would be the PGA Tour and NASCAR. And as NASCAR fans started to opine for possibly a ratings bump similar to the Daytona 500 in 1979 during the big Northeast blizzard that had many people snowed in and glued to their TV screens, that would not be the case, as NASCAR would not compete that weekend at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. The PGA Tour would attempt to continue its tournament, but due to coronavirus fears, the tournament was also canceled. And with that, the sports world and most of America fell silent. From there, our lives were confined to our homes. Staying at home orders meant that the only time we could go outside was for light exercise or supplies. Toilet paper also disappeared from shelves and did not come back for a long, long time. Though the confusion as to why toilet paper disappeared is still lost on this podcaster, but it is what it is. And during those 8 weeks, we had to get used to a new normal. The sports leagues that usually were a distraction were no longer with us. Offices went from cubicles downtown to home offices in our residence. Kitchen tables became schools. Living rooms became office desks. And we all came together as one to fight the virus by staying at home, though some gave up on the fight earlier than others. However, we come into a time where, 1 year later, the coronavirus is on its heels. 3, possibly 4 vaccines have been developed and are now being administered around the world. States that were locked down tight are now starting to open up their businesses, some faster than others. Just right now, President Joe Biden is giving a speech where he will declare that the states must make the vaccine available to all adults by May 1st, targeting a July 4th that where last year we stayed home and fireworks did not light up the sky in many states, that we can gather around for barbecue, baseball, and of course, fireworks in the night sky. But I will say, as we are nearing the final phase of this fight, that we must continue to stay strong, continue to wear masks, continue to social distance, and when it is your time to get the vaccine, to go get it as early as possible. Because the only way that we will put the coronavirus on the damaged vehicle policy for good is if we get vaccinated and we continue to social distance. So that March 11th, 2020 can be remembered as a day that our world stood still temporarily, but we came back stronger 1 year later. And with that commentary out of the way, I want to welcome my guests for this segment. You have heard this man on Set Point and a bunch of other shows around here, Teran Rodriguez, and I used to call him the hardest working man in IE Sports Radio, but I will call him the leader of the hardest working team at IE Sports Radio. Mr. Larry B. joining me as well as we're going to talk about our memories of this day. Fellas, welcome. And the first thing I want to start off with is we're just pretty much going to free practice this. Let's jump back March 11th, 2020. Where were you when you heard the news that the NBA was shutting down?
I guess I'll start. So I basically was at home after I got back from what I found out was everything being canceled in terms of high school sports, because I am a high school sports reporter. Well, not like an actual one, but like a beat reporter. But I just sent stats everywhere. But I did find out that everything was being canceled. And then I saw the NBA being canceled. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And then I saw this whole Rudy Gobert thing, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And then eventually when I saw him actually having COVID-19, I'm like, oops, guess he shouldn't have done that. So yeah, I was still in my house in Newport Beach, California, when I found out the news, and I was just flabbergasted.
Well, not too far down the freeway. By the way, thank you for the awesome introduction, Darryl. As always, brother, appreciate you, man. As I always like to say, ladies and gentlemen, we definitely got to share that role with Teran now. But the hardest working man at IE Sports Radio. And by the way, I know it's a sidebar. My apologies, but I gotta show love, man. My boy Darryl is just weeks away from his Masters, so just in case, y'all, just in case you're wondering where the comment went of the hardest working man, well, he's definitely still extremely hardworking. Just can't devote too much time, of course, to the station as he once did. However, I am all for it, encouraging the crap out of him, and I'm so excited for his soon-to-be graduation to finally achieve that master's in journalism. So, Darryl, my gosh, brother, congratulations, and I'm really excited for that. And also, Teran getting ready to earn his BA in just a few weeks as well. So, congratulations to you, good sir. So happy to both of you guys, and thank you both for having me. But okay, so overall, as Teran in Newport Beach, me about my goodness, how was that? About 60 some miles away, inland from Teran. There I was at work, hanging out, doing the sub thing, and first text I get, because of course my phone is just constantly going off, as it was then, with Twitter updates and lots of things there. But the one that got me immediately, the first update that got me, was actually the Ivy League. I don't know if you guys remember, but from what I can understand, or from what I can remember actually, was the Ivy League. I remember seeing the Ivy League saying they're going to cancel all sports. They're going to freeze everything at that moment. And it kind of hit me at first. I was wondering, okay, like this is kind of weird. Why would they do that? Apparently there's a pandemic, but we don't even know much about it. It seems serious, but come on, guys, it's the flu is not even as, it's basically like a flu, That's what I was thinking to myself, like, okay, well, it can't be that bad. What the heck's up with the Ivy League? Like, that's kind of ridiculous. Don't you think? A little too much? Well, come to find out I was very wrong. But at that moment in time, I was thinking, you've got to be kidding me. Well, within hours, Darryl and Teran, within hours, we start getting more news and more news and more news. And before you know it, you start seeing Serie A shut down in Italy. You start seeing the soccer leagues around the world start shut down. The NBA, of course. You hear about Rudy Gobert. You start hearing all these things, and before you know it, that day I was sitting, I believe, in the Learning Center at one of the high schools that I sub at, and wouldn't you know it, from that moment where I got the Ivy League cancellation by that evening, it seemed like the sports world was in shambles, because by that evening, everything was getting canceled. And my goodness, even more by the next day, and more by the next day. Before you know it, we had no sports. So I remember that day, guys. If you remember, I was actually getting ready to head home that day. But if you guys remember, I wrote a pretty lengthy little message to the entire IE Sports Radio group. And I told everybody, look, don't panic. We're going to be just fine. We're going to get through this. The sports is what we do, but we can still, this is probably only going to last about 6 weeks. We don't know how long it's going to last, but we don't, we can't just freeze and stop what we do. So how about this? We start doing themed weeks. We start doing weeks where we do like 80s week, like we did one time, or we do, why you love sports week and all that, like for our shows, and just try to, well, it went pretty well with like the first 2 weeks. And then we started to learn that the return of sports would be much more further than what we thought. So after that, we started, we banded together, and we did our best. NASCAR continued to look pretty good, and baseball came back for a shorter season. And before we know it, as the year rolled on, it got better. And finally, here we are now. It seems like we're getting out of the woods now. Not completely, but almost there, it seems, or we'd love to hope at least. But that was quite an adventure. So my apologies for the lengthy when I heard COVID type of deal. But that's exactly what happened. Ladies and gentlemen, IE Sports Radio listeners out there, that's exactly what happened. And I could not be more proud of this team for fighting through that, even though we had no sports. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was a great time where we all banded together here at the station. We had the COVID red flag here at here at the Extra Mile, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But I was actually at the day job at WBGR Sports. We had just finished up, or WBGR Sports Entertainment, rather. I had just finished up a show. And we're closing down, getting ready to go home, and I'm looking at my phone, and Rudy Gobert tested positive. And the NBA just shut down. And we had been talking that day, some of us were talking with the host and thinking, ooh, this is kind of getting serious. You think they're going to send us home? You think we'll be home for a couple of weeks? And I run in there as they're about to leave, and I'm like, the NBA just shut down. And we're sitting there and we're all talking about it, and we're like, this is about to get bad. And over the next couple of days, it did get bad. I will say that everything, shutting down, the case numbers started going up. I was still going to UMD. I was doing the master's program. So we had a couple of days before we would go back to spring break, and they were already telling us, we're going to be, when you guys go home, we're staying out for another couple of weeks. And my girlfriend, we were talking, and she was like, so I guess we'll be out for extra 2 weeks and then come back. And I'm looking at it, and I told her, sweetie, if they send us home, we're not coming back to campus. There's no way this is going to be under control in 2 weeks. And it wasn't, as we're sitting here a year later. But I will say, and this will go into my next point, getting sports back when we did, starting in May when NASCAR came back, and then baseball, and then the NHL and NBA bubbles, and the wobble with WNBA, and everything the MLS did, I think that started the healing process from the shock of what happened in March, because at least we had a little bit of normalcy. Now, it was weird watching sporting events with nobody at them. And I'm sorry, the fake crowd noise, and you two might be able to agree, it's not for me. Honestly, I'd rather just watch the games without the fake crowd noise and listen to all the players, yell and scream at each other. But they probably can't do that, because then we hear all the swear words and they'd get in trouble with the FCC. But we had to change a lot of stuff. The seats were covered. The TV providers are trying to do things to jazz it up. We had like virtual fans at one point. That was really weird. It really felt like, we're watching these sports. We're seeing everybody race and play. But you never really thought about the fact that the crowd was there. And then when the crowd wasn't there, everything just felt off. Like, you take it for granted, Larry, that people go to these things every week. And they went and they had a lot of fun. And their excitement or disappointment really played into how the sport was, really fed into how the players reacted.
I completely agree. Darryl. My goodness, you know, can we just talk about this real quick? I mean, I guess this will go right in with it. This will fit hand in hand. But we took for granted the fans being there and how much what it really does for the game, the atmosphere, and then it's like, you know, it's a trip because we actually took for granted sports. I mean, before the fake crowds even became a thing, there was no sports. And it's incredible because you have nothing. Like, we had nothing for a little bit. And those weeks were lonely. I mean, that was like spending a weekend without my girlfriend, man. You know what I mean? Like, it was like emptiness. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sitting there staring at the wall. Like, what in the world is going on with what's going on with the world, you know? So that's exactly what it felt like, you know? And then it started coming back. We're like, yes, but it's like, forgive us for being so stingy. Forgive us for being so, I guess you could say, ungrateful. You know, the sports were doing what they were supposed to do, you know, with social distancing and not having fans in the crowd and everything. But my gosh, if that wasn't, it's the imitation, you know, like you can't have that. It's incredible to think that the crowd really does bring so much into it. So, I mean, it was huge. And Teran, I believe we were even talking about this one time. You know, I forgot, I think it was just you and me messaging or whatever when sports were trying to come back. And I believe I was talking to Darryl too about this a couple times. But I mean, Teran, it's crazy because we were like, okay, well, at the time, I mean, we have Teran getting ready. You know, he had his 2 shows, and it's like, I remember getting the messages like, well, what do we do now? Like, you know, so like, you know, what's going on? How are we going to do this? So like, even with Teran, when Teran explained to me that the women's volleyball season was going to be played in the spring, then I was like, okay, this is getting loopy. Like, seriously, like, can't they just cancel the season? And Teran's like, no, some sports are better than no sports. And I'm like, you're right. So yeah, Teran, I mean, go ahead, man. Tell us all about how you personally, because you're the volleyball guy here, and our Southern California guy as well. But tell us about, like, in your opinion, the sports that had to get postponed into this year, into 2021, that are regularly played in the fall, and it hit you close to home because you're volleyball, and on top of that, even with football, like the CCAA.
So yeah, yeah, all volleyball got pretty much postponed back in March, and I was about ready to do an episode of Set Point and preview a marquee matchup between UC Santa Barbara and Long Beach State. And then I found out that everything got postponed, and then everything got canceled. And then I was just at a wonder of what I'm going to do. And then I had to basically make it work. And I'm actually going to give Darryl a shout out for this because I needed inspiration on how I can keep Set Point going, as I actually was listening to the Extra Mile, and I found out that Darryl and his crew had guests. And then I was like, you know, maybe I can round up some guests too. And I eventually survived the summer by not taking a week off and by having guests on my show, whether it's like former college volleyball players, former current coaches, volleyball coaches, you name it. And it was absolutely amazing. So I got to give a round of applause to Darryl and the Extra Mile for inspiring me to keep Set Point going. And I agree. And something I do need to make note is that I think we all took sports for granted, considering now we're just going to cherish it because you never know what could happen, considering nothing is guaranteed, especially when we lived in 2020. So as Larry was mentioning about the volleyball season, yeah, volleyball there was NCAA volleyball that happened in the spring or in the fall, but then everything got moved to spring, and now it's just one big cluster of NCAA beach volleyball, NCAA women's volleyball, and NCAA men's volleyball all together. And even the AVP Beach Volleyball League only had 3 events as opposed to having like multiple events. And I was like, okay, well, at least everything's coming back. Like everything, all the AVP beach volleyball events had no fans in Long Beach just because of the whole COVID-19 and everything else that happened. But it seems like everything is starting to open up. But I think the few people or the few athletes that are heavily affected are the high school athletes, because some weren't able to have like a senior year, and some even had to some players in like California even had to move. Well, not just in volleyball, but in like certain sports in general, like football. It's now getting to the point where everyone's going to start to get like a senior year, but it's only going to get condensed to 3 weeks in like football and then volleyball and other sports that are played in the fall. So as everything does get opened up, I just got to say that I am thankful and just extremely grateful that we still have sports, and we can't take it for granted no matter what happens. And I hope that this never, ever happens again, and that we can one day go back to being close to the original normal. But we're going to have a new normal, and everyone's just got to comply. No matter how much you don't like it, you have to just straight up follow the guidelines, follow the rules. Don't give people guff. Just, if you want everything to stay intact, just follow the rules. It's that simple. Don't make a scene. Don't be a crab. Just don't ruin it for everybody like Rudy Gobert did on that fateful 1 year ago day.
Rudy Gobert will be remembered, unfortunately, as the guy that ended sports. And it shouldn't be that way, because either way, sports was going to shut down. But what he did, it was just so egregious that, of course, when he did test positive for COVID-19, everyone just connected him with basically shutting down the NBA. And I remember the jokes and everything that came with that, which is unfortunate for him. Thankfully, he recovered and is back playing basketball again, but he's going to get ribbed for that for the rest of his career. But also want to give a shout out to Couch Crew Chief. He's the one that really helped put those interviews together during the COVID Red Flag series. And we had what turned into kind of a mini game to end the series or the interview, just to, end it on a light note, because talking about, everything blocked with COVID-19, it's a little bit of a downer, especially during that time. We would start asking people, did you have enough toilet paper? Because remember, that was around the time where we went to the store and there was no toilet paper, because everyone thought that toilet paper was going to be the currency for the apocalypse or something. I'm not sure what happened there. And we get to the Angela Ruck interview. And we asked her, Caitlin asked the question, does she have enough toilet paper? I will never forget this answer the rest of my life. They had like a $3,000 heated seat, bidet, touchscreen in the toilet type deal, and they didn't even use toilet paper. And I'm like, you know what? You win. Because nobody's going to give an answer the rest of this series that's going to top what you just said. And we never did get the brand of what that toilet was, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, that just takes the cake. Like, a $3,000 heated seat. First, a toilet with heated seats. That's how you know you got too much money. You got heated seats on your toilet. Like, really?
You gotta admit, that was one of the coolest things I've ever heard, man. I even forgot, and you reminded me right now. That was probably one of the neatest things I've heard. Number one, big shout out to Angela Ruck. She's awesome, and I just thought, when you guys had her on the show, I mean, she was awesome from start to finish. I mean, she was just a ball of energy the whole time. But just that conclusion was literally will go down in the iSports Radio history as like one of the greatest conclusions ever of any interview ever. Like, I mean, that was absolutely awesome. But yeah, I mean, that was such a cool period in time though, Darryl, because though the world was suffering, all kinds of crap was happening, and COVID was like taking over, it was actually, and I hate saying this, I really do, because it's not a positive. Listeners, it's not a positive. Trust me, there was nothing positive about a pandemic destroying our world, or at least a big part of it, and taking millions of lives. However, if there was a positive in this terrible pandemic, is the fact that the athletes and drivers and everyone was just kind of hanging out and not doing much. And it was cool because Couch Crew Chief actually went after a whole bunch of drivers and athletes for us. And wouldn't you know, our booking agent, by the way, Couch Crew Chief, and he pulled in a bunch of people. And I mean, I was honored. I got to talk to 3-time NHRA champion Matt Hagan. I got to speak with one of my all-time favorite drivers ever, my father's idol and turned into my idol, John Force, on our 6-year anniversary show in May of last year. I mean, I talked to so many cool people. Angel's Picture, Ty Buttry, and his wife Sam, with her YouTube channel, and this is awesome. So, I mean, though it wasn't the greatest time, and Teran had so many cool hosts. I mean, so many cool guests, and one of my favorites was Alan Knight, because Long Beach State, I mean, if anybody knows college volleyball, Long Beach State, they are top dogs right now. They are one of the most powerful teams you can imagine in all of volleyball. And I'm like, no way, dude, you just got him like on the show? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, no way. Like, that was so cool hearing that. But yeah, I mean, to think Teran made it happen and went after the guests and everything too. So I didn't mean to steal your thunder there, Teran, but I'm just saying, man, there were so many things. Even though it sucked, there was a lot to be grateful for within that time period.
Coarsely, sorry, Darryl, were you about to say something?
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay, so coarsely, I actually kind of borrowed the toilet paper question for my show, and again, Darryl and the Extra Mile were the basic inspirations for me, helping me keep Set Point intact. And coarsely, that I know Darryl and everyone else had the toilet paper question where Angela Ruck gave that amazing answer, but coincidentally, I actually had a guest, Dalton Ammerman, on the 50th episode of Set Point, where I asked him, did you have enough toilet paper? He actually gave the opposite answer, as he said he didn't have toilet paper for the first 2 to 3 weeks. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but he and his family basically had to get off the pot and shower.
Oof.
I'm
Oof.
sorry if I'm not allowed to if I'm not allowed to say that.
No, you're good. Just a
But
big
that was,
F
like,
in the chat.
Yeah.
Big
That
F
was,
in the
like,
chat.
That was like the greatest answer ever. And everyone else kept saying, I went to Costco, and I stocked up. It's like, okay, cool. At least these people are thinking. But that was like the best answer. I think that was like the only time someone said I didn't have enough toilet paper to start off when it came to this whole pandemic. So there was that. And I really enjoyed all of the interviews that Jonathan Grunke, aka Couch Crew Chief, was able to put together. Like, he really grinded to help keep our shows going, whether it was Defining Moment or Extra Mile or anything among that sort. And again, I couldn't have kept Set Point going without you, Darryl, and as well as Jonathan and the rest of the Extra Mile crew. So I gotta tip my hat to you.
And I've got to thank Caitlin Seam, who was with us during that time. I know Lolita Camello came back during that time as well. It was great getting to hear from her. She's doing bigger and better things in the Indianapolis area right now. She's a producer right now, actually. So congratulations for her working at one of the news stations out there. Caitlin also moved back to the Michigan area, now in Indianapolis, working as a librarian. And it was great having them on the program just for that time, those 8 weeks, getting to share it with people. And this microphone really became my therapy during the whole thing. Because I'll tell you guys, getting into April, I was not in a good place. You know, trying to do classes online sucks. Couldn't really go see my girlfriend because we're at stay-at-home orders. We're switching out our work pajamas for our play pajamas, if that makes sense. And I like to just get up and go. I like being out of the house. I have ADHD, so I don't like sitting still. The fact that I can actually sit here for an hour and talk to this microphone is amazing, but I'm talking about something I really like, which is racing. And one thing about ADHD, you hyperfixate on something, and for me, it was cars going around in circles for several hours or in a straight line or whatever they like to do. This really did help me get through the stay-at-home, safer-at-home, whatever they wanted to call it, period of all this. And I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but at one point, this was really the only way we had real, tangible connections with the outside world, which was cutting these microphones on and talking about our favorite sports and talking to other people. You know, I went from seeing like 32 people a day in my cohort to barely speaking to maybe 4 or 5 people a week. So it was a big change, and with everybody at IE Sports Radio, really helped me get through it.
I got to agree with you there. I got you there, Darryl. I mean, as I always do. But yeah, man, it's the same deal. I took to the podcast really was just like a big time, like a, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. And the themes that we did and all the guests that we had. And just, you know, I remember listening to USRN and they were doing the vaults, you know, I think they were like YouTubing old games and commentating them like as if they were new and like reliving historic moments in games. And that was awesome. But it's just incredible to think that we had to do that. Like, it really came to that because this virus wasn't joking around. Like, it was a very real thing. And as much as we want to downplay it, as much as we didn't want to, or at least people who want to downplay it, as much as we didn't want to comply with the masks and all these different things, there was no choice. And it was basically comply or suffer, you know, and we didn't want that. And I mean, my goodness, Darryl, it'll be, I believe in 2 weeks will be the day that I lost my job, you know, because of this. And thank God, by the grace of God, today we just had the like reorientation in a sense. And we're doing small cohorts right now. We're going to be in the classroom with 14 seniors because my district is going to cater to the seniors, of course, who are having a hard time with distance learning. So right now, here in Southern California, in Riverside County, I'm very pleased because I know that a lot of Orange County is really open. So Teran's happy over there. San Diego's pretty open. I know Los Angeles, I think, is pretty open, but the Inland Empire wasn't open for a while, and it sucked. Like, my girlfriend and I had to go to other counties just to be able to go to the dings, like to go walk around at the outlets or something. So of course with our masks and everything, but when we just wanted to get out for just a little bit, and, you know, but today, as a matter of fact, we just had our basically like our training, and yeah, we start in 2 weeks. So kind of crazy there, Darryl, or it is crazy to think that, you know, the anniversary of all this happening is today. And in just 2 weeks, when I start back, will literally be 1 full year, like somewhere in the 20s of March, somewhere in, I don't know where it was, March 20 something, but that was when I lost my job. And I mean, it sucked because that was a hard year. But at the same exact time, Darryl, like you said, you know, you talked about you're getting through it and you're coping and what was therapy for you. Well, at the same time, this time last year, Darryl, I was just finishing up my second semester of 3 really grueling semesters in my master's program, completing all those 10 classes within 11 months. And it was a lot to deal with. I was doing each class was 8 weeks, and sometimes I doubled up. And they gave us 2 weeks of work within 1 week. So sometimes I had 2 classes. Therefore, it was basically 4 weeks of work within 1 week. And it was a lot. And then sometimes I just had 1 class where it was still a lot. 2 weeks of work within 1 week and just a lot. And you know as well as I do, Darryl, these master's classes, man, they don't play. Like, this isn't
No, they do not. No, they do not. Folks, when April 21st comes, if I'm not on the next episode of The Extra Mile there, I apologize. I'm still trying to sleep off this Masters because sleep is not a thing that happened over this. But we're getting to 8:56. I don't want to cut you off, Larry, but we got to get ready to get out of here. We still got to do Nearest the Win. We're going to Phoenix this week, and sorry we didn't get a chance to preview the race this week. I thought it was important that we talk about today where we were a year ago and what we're looking forward to. So we've got Phoenix this week in the Cup Series, as NASCAR continues to be the only series we're scoring right now. And it's really hard to pick these races because we've all picked folks that are supposed to win, and complete randos keep winning, except for T, who called Kyle Larson winning. So we're going to go into this week. I am cautiously picking our defending champion, Chase Elliott, to win this race. But the way it's going, Daniel Suarez might end up winning this thing. Who knows? T, who you got?
Yeah. Uh-oh. Good question. You may have to pass on me for a little bit.
Okay.
All right.
Well, it's all good, Teran. You're good, man. I'm actually looking at the defending champ of last year's race at ISM, and it was Joey Logano. Wouldn't you know it? So, you know what? I'm going to have fun with this one and go try to see if he can do it back-to-back years. I'm going to be taking Logano for this victory at ISM.
All righty. And that'll bring us right back to T.
All right. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Denny Hamlin, if he's participating.
He is. Denny's on the full season.
Okay, yeah, then I'm picking Denny Hamlin.
Well, we will see how this goes. Remember, folks, if you want to compete in Nearest the Win as well, make sure hashtag Nearest the Win with your favorite or your driver who you think that's going to win this week at Phoenix. You can see that race at 3:30 p.m. on FS1. Larry, Teran, thank you so much for joining me for this special episode of The Extra Mile. And folks, make sure you check out their shows, Set Point and The Defining Moment and 3 and Out, NFL and College Edition, which I believe College Edition is coming back soon, or coming back when we get college football, obviously, which will not be soon as it's March. We're getting into basketball season. And make sure you check out, I'm not sure which station is the head of this family. We'll say the USRN family of networks coming up between USRN, USRN2, Wellington Sports Radio, and IE Sports Radio, is we are going to have every game of the 2021 NCAA men's basketball tournament. March Madness can be heard right here on IE Sports Radio on Mixlr.com. And, of course, make sure you watch the social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check out the website, iesportsradio.com. Well, folks, we're going to go ahead and get out of here for this edition of The Extra Mile. For T and Larry, I'm Darryl. This has been The Extra Mile. See you guys next week for the next green flag. Good night, everybody.